We are here. We have our coffee. Erica, it looks like you are enjoying the outdoors this morning. I love it.
I'm trying. I've been in a classroom too much these last few weeks, so got to get outside a little bit.
Yeah, you guys have been doing lots of training. It's been awesome.
Yes.
As a reminder, we'd like to introduce ourselves. We are a readiness group. We are a training and development company that focuses on resiliency and wellness. And I am Dr. Kelly Guidry, and I'll let Erica introduce y'all.
I'm Dr. Erica Slee, a physical therapist.
Awesome. So today we're talking about a really cool concept because in my head it's fun. It's a fun concept, and it's exciting to talk about. And the idea of flow. And so for those of you who don't know, there's a book called Flow. It's I can't say
by a guy whose name we cannot pronounce.
Haley is his first name, so if you type that, you will find it, and it is a really good book. But the idea behind flow is that you have this ability to get so immersed in what you're doing that you lose track of time, and you just experience this really engrossed moment of being super present. And I think it's one of the coolest things to do. It's kind of like I sit down to do something and I look up at the clock and go, whoa, how did 4 hours go by? Or, and you don't even realize, you lose total sense of track of time because you're totally engrossed and enjoying what you're doing. And I think that flow can come in a number of ways. And so we wanted to kind of introduce the concept and then talk about, what does it really mean to experience flow? So Erica, what do you think from that perspective? How do people find flow or experience flow?
I'm definitely not an expert in flow, other than having read his book, and I do love the book because I do think it gives you a kind of a good understanding of the topic and the concept. And the concept to me in my life and in like real life is just that ability to find that thing that takes you away from everything else, and I think that, when we're younger, our understanding of that thing is pretty large. It's got to be a big goal that we accomplish. And as we get older and we go through different phases of life and we get children and all of the things that we acquire, right, as we go through all these phases of life, life starts to get in the way of those big things, and finding the ability to find flow in the smaller things in life, I think is really important. And so to me, the way I do that in my own life and some of the discussions that we've had in some of the classes that we've had is it's all about finding that escape. It's finding that thing that when you do it, your mind is all in. And you're not thinking about all of the chronic stress and the critical stress and life in general. You're able to totally hone in on that thing. And it's an escape is what it is, because it gives you 30 minutes to an hour of not going through those in your head of everything you've got going on in your life, and to just be present and be mindful and to be there, I think it's important to find those things that, to me, it's mindfulness training in a way, because it's those things that do it for you naturally, some of the examples that we've gotten in class is some guys like to be on a tractor. When they're on a tractor doing work on their ranches, that's it. They're fully in. They're not thinking about anything else. Some people it's hunting or fishing, For me, it's riding horses. When I'm riding a horse, I can't be present on anything else because the horse knows that, It can be, just so many things that it can be, but it's really very personal, and it's something that for you kind of sets your soul on fire. So you're all in on that, focusing on everything else you got going on in life.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing, because I think a lot of times people think like to really get engaged or to really have an adventure or to really experience this thing, they have to have something really big, a big vacation or something monumental almost. And that's just not the case. And, typically people who are, like, you think about really famous artists or musicians, or they're excellent at getting into flow, and that's their passion, right? So
Yes.
every time they pick up their violin to play, it's like boom, they go, and they can get there really quick and really easily. So it doesn't have to be something extravagant. It can be the things that you love to do every single day.
Yeah.
And I think that part is really important.
Yeah, in the book, and what people talk about a lot on flow is exactly what you spoke of, which is you can get into professional flow. And the example we give of that in class is, arriving on the scene of a fire, and those moments where your team is just, everybody knows what they're supposed to do and everybody executes well, and you just kind of feel like you're in flow on scene, would be an example. Exactly what you just talked about as a musician, being in flow as you create or as you perform, different things like that. And I think that those are excellent things to recognize, because when you do have goals in those areas to really perform at your highest level, then the ability to get everything out of the way and knowing that practice for yourself so you can get in flow. Some people will talk about people who shoot a lot, archery or guns, or snipers. They have a process, right, that kind of gets them in flow, and they do that same process every time so that they optimize the performance of that skill that they're doing. And I think that that's important. Not all of us are trying to execute at that professional of a level in what we're trying to do. Some of us are just trying to live life in a way that our family is in flow and that we find joy in our lives. And so to me, I think that understanding this concept from a perspective of, how do I find flow just on a daily basis? What are those things that I'm passionate enough about that get me in flow, so that I can find joy? Because when you do get that feeling of being in flow, after that, it just increases your positivity and your gratitude and your joy and your fun and your humor. And sometimes it takes finding that activity to get you out of everything else so that you can find that joy again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So me being mostly family and kids and working with kids, one way that I really encourage parents to practice this with their own kids at home is play with them for 5 minutes a day. That's it. 5 minutes a day with total distraction free. Don't have your TV on, don't have your phone next to you, don't have the laundry going in the background, nothing. Sit there, enjoy your kids, and be present in that moment for 5 minutes. And before you know it, 5 minutes is going to feel like nothing, and you're going to forget about the laundry and the TV and the everything else.
Yeah.
Because you're allowing yourself to really have fun. And then you're also getting your kids to practice this concept too, because I promise you they're going to eat that up, right?
Yes.
So that's just an example of something on a daily, if you do have kiddos at home, that you can do to practice that. It's a lot of fun to see when it happens, and the more that you do it, the easier it becomes a consistency. And so that can be really cool too.
Yeah, I think it's important as a family to find those activities that just take you away. And it can be as simple as going for a hike. It can be, our family goes out to the ranch, and myself and my 2 girls ride horses, and my husband jumps on a tractor. And that, for all of us, all 4 of us, that is that activity. We go 2 days a week, and it's kind of our weekly reset, And for other families, it's going fishing together as a family or whatever it is. And if you've got small kids, it's harder, but it's exactly what you just talked about. It's prioritizing. If you can find that activity for them that they just get all into, which is easy with those young kids, and you just prioritize 5 minutes of that, it makes a huge difference in the entire dynamic of the day.
Yeah. So let's talk briefly before we kind of wrap things up about the benefits of flow. Why is this concept important, and just that idea of, why are we even talking about this? So I'll let you go first, and then I know I have some ideas about it too.
Okay. Yeah. You know me, I always like to come back to the physiology during stress, and it's getting into flow, finding that activity that takes you away from basically the stress response in your brain, that process that kind of gets you living in the red. If you can find that activity that when you engage in it, you let all of those things that cause that to go away, it helps your brain to regain balance. It's a buffer basically to the stress that we face. And that's not just, we work a lot with first responders and military people who face a lot of critical stress, a lot of trauma. It's not just that. It's not just the critical stress. The brain doesn't know the difference between critical stress and chronic stress. It has the same response to someone bullying you at school as it does to witnessing a car accident and a fatality, right? It's just the severity of the response. On a daily basis are exposed to this chronic stress that we're experiencing. Our brain is just kind of more and more living in that red mode. And so it's having that escape, having that sense of flow, having those daily small adventures, give the brain a chance to disengage from that red mode or that sympathetic nervous system and find a sense of safety, which brings you back into what we call green mode, or it turns back on the human part of our brain, which gives us the ability to focus on the things that we're grateful for, our families and what we want to get out of life and all of those important things. There's a great therapeutic process out there now that they're using a lot with veterans and people with PTSD that have been through a lot of trauma. And it's, I can't remember the name of it. Maybe you do. But their basic premise is using a sense of awe to engage in, to basically re-engage the human part of the brain to find joy. And so they take people out into these incredible scenes of nature out in national parks and different things like that, and engage that sense of awe in order to regain the green side of the brain. So it's a pretty powerful process, and it kind of all goes back to that ability to find flow. So.
Yeah. And I think this speaks to also someone's ability, like it's going to do things like help you increase your attention and focus and help you increase your self-awareness. And just by the fact that you're able to be present, because so much of our lives we spend thinking about the what ifs, which are future focused, or the what haves, which are past focused. And this idea that I can stay in the moment and stay present in something that I like to do, distraction free, which we don't get a lot as human beings. And so it really does, it helps increase because it works that executive functioning piece of your brain, which is what you're talking about. It's not that fight, flight, or freeze mode. It's really, really helping those pathways in the brain develop that executive functioning piece, which does help, naturally will help increase some of that other stuff that maybe people are struggling with.
Yeah.
So it's just a cool thing all in all, I think, to practice and to try to strive for. And it's not always possible. In fact, to be in a state of flow actually takes some energy.
Practice.
It takes practice and it takes energy. And at the end of it, sometimes you're exhausted because you are so present and reminded that by the end you're like, man, that felt great, but woo, I need a nap, or
Yes.
And so that's a natural experience. We could not feasibly live our entire life in a state of flow because we would just be plumb exhausted the whole time.
Yes.
So that there's something to be said for that too. So I think finding it in little spurts and trying to get intentional about it can be really helpful. But knowing that it's not the idea that you're going to spend your whole life in flow.
Yeah. And I think just re-emphasizing the importance of keeping it simple, I mean, finding those daily joys, like you said, 5 minutes with your kids and something that is an escape for them. And then I think as married couples, we need to recognize that there are different things that bring us that escape. And we need to allow that, right, as couples, because it gets really hard when, especially I think it gets really hard when one spouse knows their escape and the other doesn't, and that spouse wants to, like hunting or fishing, right? That happens a lot. But they go hunting or fishing, and the wife is stuck at home with the kids. Is the traditional thing, right? And so, if you can prioritize that, but then also the other spouse knowing what their escape is, and you guys prioritizing that, it's a way of lifting each other up and giving each other an opportunity to buffer that stress, which brings you closer together as a couple, and it makes you better parents and all of it,
The other side to that, so, not from my own marriage, my husband's escape for sure is golf, right? And so, golfing is not like I can do it, but it's not necessarily my favorite thing to go out and do. I tell them all the time, who has 4 hours to chase a white ball around? But I do think that prioritizing that for them too. So even if it's not your thing, occasionally making the effort to say, okay, I'm going to go enjoy it with you.
Yes.
I think is a really big deal. And if they can teach you something about it and vice versa, you can teach them something about what you love to do and how you kind of get into that state. Then that also helps strengthen your relationship as well. And then include your family.
Yes.
You can do it as a couple. You can include your family in it. There's a lot of ways to kind of navigate that and go about it, just even if it's in little chunks. So I'll tell him, all right, I'll go out and I'll do 9 holes, and then you can finish the other 9.
100%. Yep. That's and it's hard. I mean, it is not easy because we get so dang busy with all that we have with our kids and work. And I mean, I am not here to say that it's easy, but when you do make it a priority, first identify it, what it is, right? Because if you don't know what it is, you can't prioritize it. So identify what it is, and then prioritize it. And then you find those out, you start to see those opportunities appear, because you start changing your lifestyle to accommodate that stuff. So.
And the identifying piece, if you don't know what it is for you, that's cool. Like, know that that's okay. I promise you're not alone. But don't be afraid to try.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to put yourself out there, try new things, and kind of the other thing to this is that sometimes when we don't know and we're figuring it out, that novelty, we oftentimes lose novel experiences very early on because by the time we're 15 or 16 years old, we really know what we like to do. And so we're not out trying soccer and basketball and swimming and all of the music and all the other stuff that as kids our parents kind of
lose it.
Yeah. And so if you don't know what flow is, take the opportunity to try some novel experiences, which is a whole nother benefit to your brain, introducing novelty again into it. And then figure it out, find what you like and enjoy it, Yeah.
I love the quote, job fills your pockets, but adventure fills your soul. And
I love it.
To me, that's what flow's about, right? It's finding those opportunities, and it's not always going to be a huge life-changing adventure. But on a Tuesday night, if you can go out to the ranch and drive on a tractor instead of sitting watching TV and drink a beer in your recliner, it's an adventure, right? And it recharges your soul to help get you through the rest of the week. It's those small things, but they make a huge difference.
Absolutely, yeah. And for you, Erica, I know just from our many conversations that your why is boils down to a big sense of adventure for you, for your family, for the business, for everything. And so that sense of adventure and kind of finding moments to have and grasp onto those is such a cool way to look at this concept of flow too.
Yeah, it's gotten challenging because we've gotten wonderfully busy. We love everything we're doing, but it does take away, and I'm saying the word but, you take away from those opportunities to have those small adventures with my family specifically, and luckily we've come to a place where the business that we're creating is a large part of our adventure, you, me, and Brenda. And so that adventure is there in what we're doing professionally. And then for right now, for our families, with how busy we are, it's prioritizing those small adventures that we make sure to get that time in so we can be present and recharge together as a family.
Absolutely. So that kind of leads me to say, I think we might have a special guest on our next live, which won't be next week, but the week after. And I don't know if it'll be 1 or 2 guests, but I think we're going to hear from some kiddos and just kind of talking about back to school and the sense of resiliency from the perspective of kids and what that looks like. Because so one of our big mottos as a company is learn it, love it, live it. And so that means that what we talk about, we also take home and we try to talk about at home. And I think that piece is really important. And so I think Erica's kiddos may be joining us and giving us some perspective on just what it means to be a teenager and how they view resiliency and wellness. their age, which is a really hard age to be.
Yes, I've got one starting high school this year and one's going to be a 5th grader. So we need resiliency in our family this year. And hopefully we'll start at 9:30. We'll see if I can pull them out of bed in time.
Okay, anything else that you want to end on today, Erica, that we haven't?
I don't think so. It was a great conversation. I love it. Anytime.
Absolutely.
We need to talk about adventure all the time. I love it.
I love it too. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. If you guys have questions, comments, concerns, drop them in the comment box or send us a message and we'll be happy to chat. And we will be back not next week because you get to go have an adventure.
I'm having an adventure next week. Yes, with my family. I'm so excited.
Yes, it's going to be fun. And so we will be back in 2 weeks with y'all and we will see you then.
I love it. Thanks, Kel.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.